This is one of those
And
catch-all blanket.
And I'm not arguing that Mr. Pierce should be comfortable, I'm just making the point that there are easements in the covenants for drainage throughout there, including a 10-foot rear yard line, but.
Margaret, could I please?
Quickly.
Madam Chairman, Article 7, which I sent to you, Tony, and to you, Ed, I believe, Article 7 definitively gives easement to all three entities. It says GSCDD, HOA, the declarant or developer, all three, and it's a really wide open article, and I think that would solve the problem of easement on this particular part of the community.
I don't necessarily agree with Mr. Brand on that. As I said, I read it, and there's some indication in one part it talks about 10 feet, and whether or not it's even blanket enough to allow for the rear yard 8-inch.
So I guess let me just rephrase or clarify what I just told you. I'm discussing easements that are platted easements. Any kind of blanket easements within the covenants, I don't have any knowledge on, but there's not a platted easement in that area.
Tyler, with the, other than 8-inch pipe not being 15 inches, of that 8-inch pipe, are there any critical defects or blockages?
Not that I'm aware of. So the issue that we had with all of the rear yard drainage, not just the 8-inch, but the 15 inch as well, was that your permit criteria manual says that you gotta turn in videotapes of the pipe. Now, there's reasons, historical reasons of why Gateway makes developers do that, but that's in there. So what we're trying to say in this letter is, we don't know. We cannot make you a recommendation to accept it because it does not meet your requirements, and there are no videotapes that exist for those sections. Are there defects?
And if there are,
There may be, there may not be.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, briefly, there is general language, but then there's specific language that says, without limiting the generality of the foregoing, a perpetual non-exclusive easement is hereby reserved to the declarant, CDD, and the master over the rear 10 feet of every parcel for drainage and utility. And I don't know if that 8-inch pipe is within that 10 feet or not, and that's just, I don't know that.
Well, I would like to speak to, having looked at these drawings, that 8-inch pipe is in a 30-foot landscape buffer easement.
That's correct. And it's at the
Okay, then I don't
outside of
understand
the
why
buffer.
I don't understand why he's talking about 10 foot.
I'm reading from the covenants.
Okay, but again, I'm talking about the plat.
The plat has a landscape buffer easement, not a drainage easement in there.
I do understand that, but he was just saying that that easement does cover it.
I think the question is the 10-foot defined to be off of the property line, or is it variable through the lot?
I'd say over the rear 10 feet.
Rear 10 feet, so it is adjacent.
Of
So
the
if the
property.
pipe is not up against the 10, within the 10 feet, it's, remains in the landscape buffer easement.
Yes.
Was that a yes or a
Any-
no?
Well, I mean, so, I mean, if you read what we wrote, our comment was, we don't have survey information on it, we don't have videos on it, so I can't tell you where it's at. I don't know if it's within that 10 feet, because we weren't given a survey for it, we weren't given videos for it, so I can't tell you where it's at.
We went out there and numerous times and pretty well walked that off. And if it is the 10 feet off the back line, then it's not gonna cover the pipe. Because it's at the house side of the buffer easement, which would be 10 feet in on the last 10 feet of the 30-foot width. It wouldn't cover it. It wouldn't cover it. There would have to be another easement done, and how you can get an easement like that at this point in time from 27 property owners is beyond me. I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you do that.
Mrs. Flaherty? No? You wanted to ask.
I think at this point in time, what I'd like to hear is a short, brief recommendation of our two professionals and our manager.
Two professionals and
Manager.
and to be clear, it's
And to be clear, do we accept
all,
primary, or a combination thereof?
well, all would be primary and secondary,
All would be primary and secondary.
or just primary.
Or just primary, or there's another option, that's everything but the 8-inch on bump rest. Because that's the one that we got a real nightmare with. We don't have any easement dedicated to us. All the rest of the pipes are in easements dedicated to us.
All right, so I'll start.
And I'm gonna check, Carl, is that correct? I believe that is correct.
I can't answer that off the top of my head, I would have to look.
What was your question? Is all the rest 15?
Yes.
Yeah,
All
it's
the
all,
rest 15.
it's only that 1,600-foot run eight.
That's what I thought it was.
And I can't corroborate what he said since I have looked at all those drawings this week.
All right, so let me preface mine with, let's remember Tetra Tech's role in this. Tetra Tech is the district engineer for Gateway. Gateway is Tetra Tech's client in this. So our responsibility is to review those plans and those turnover documents in accordance with your rules and your permit criteria manual. So, I mean, I'll keep my recommendation very simple and black and white, either is or it is not. So the memo that we've given you identifies the areas that do not comply with your permit criteria manual. It's not really my place to make a recommendation to vary from that or provide some sort of leniency from that. I mean, that's a decision that the board would have to make. What I can tell you is, those are the items that do not comply with your permit criteria manual. All of the other items, we are satisfied that they are compliant.
Questions? Tyler? Okay. Mr. Attorney?
Rereading, and this will take, in my opinion, an act of WCI or Lennar, that to the extent that there are any facilities that are not in any platted easement, and you have this general language in Article 7, it would require execution of a document by Lennar to grant such an easement. Charles, and I'm specifically referring, let me find it. Sorry here. It's in, detailing 7.1 to the page. When it talks about a specific easements will be granted, the location and extent of such easements shall be shown on the plats to be recorded of the property, or in such other instruments defining same to be executed by declarant, for so long as declarant owns any portion of the property, and thereafter by the master association. And then further on it says, in addition to the drainage and utility easements reserved above pursuant to the 10-foot easement, in addition to that specific 10-foot easement, perpetual non-exclusive easement is reserved unto declarant, granted to the master or across the property. But then it talks again about, upon completion of said drainage facilities, the location and extent of specific drainage easements may be shown on the plats or such other instruments defining same to be executed by declarant, for so long as declarant owns any portion of the property, and thereafter by the master association or CDD. So if Lennar, do you own any property in that community at all?
Do we own any property?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
A few lots
Okay.
here and there.
I would suggest if Lennar and WCI and the master association would to grant specific easements along the rear lot, if the board is inclined to take those, they would have to grant specific drainage easements and make representation that they have the full right and authority to do that.
Well, if there's other owners and mortgagees, we're probably not gonna do that.
So, in other words, you don't believe that language gives you that authority?
I think there's a very good argument that language would be trumped by mortgages, and there's some good, notwithstanding that language being in there, there are potential title issues with doing that. Would we give if we have the interest quit claim kind of easement, absolutely, that would not be a problem. But with warranties based on just this provision, no, I don't think Lennar would agree to that.
Charles, if that's the case, how does the homeowners association maintain it?
That's a good question.
But that's based on the easements already granted. What Mr. Pierce is talking about is a future subsequent grant after there's
I'm
been
talking
other
about,
people in
I'm
title.
talking about Bellcrest, purely Bellcrest.
Right, but are there, do we own
Bellcrest
all the
has
lots in
no
Bellcrest?
easement.
No, so that's, we don't own all the lots in Bellcrest, so that's a totally different scenario than what's
That's
already
my
been
question.
granted.
How is the HOA going to maintain that 27 lot facility along the back?
Right, I must not be articulating the answer. There's an easement granted in here to the HOA, okay? Mr. Pierce is asking a question about his comfort in an easement to the district for those areas. He's pointing to language that purports to give a future right to grant specific easements over these properties. Notwithstanding that, if we've already deeded that to someone, I don't feel we can give a warranty that another subsequent easement, not the one already granted to the HOA, but a new easement, when those have already been transferred title to someone else and there's a mortgagee there. So that's,
maybe I'm not
I follow with Charles. Charles, then to the extent that you believe the association has already been granted the drainage easements along the rear of Bellcrest to be able to operate and
assign.
maintain those 8-inch pipes, would the association then assign that easement rights
I don't think we'd have a problem with that.
to the district, if the board was so inclined to take those.
Well,
That's the key.
well, then maybe Charles is gonna have to explain the need. You're saying that a landscape buffer easement gives either us or them, the HOA, the right to maintain that drainage pipe? Keep in
No.
mind, it's a landscape buffer easement, it doesn't even use the word drainage.
No, no, I'm not relying on that. What I'm saying, sorry. They're looking at me like, I don't wanna hear about this.
I don't wanna hear about it.
I'm ready to make a motion, but I
I'm
need
ready
an
to
answer
make a
to this.
motion.
Yeah.
May, will you hold on just a minute?
Absolutely.
May I?
You may make a motion, yes. Go ahead.
Madam Chairman, we've been torturing our residents in Hampton Park for months. Therefore, I move that we accept all of the Hampton Park surface water drainage immediately.
Both the primary and the
Both
secondary?
the primary and the secondary, the
Yes.
entire.
Second that for discussion.
Okay. The only question that I have currently is, who is actually maintaining that area now? Who's making sure that the drainage boxes are weed whacked or whatever they need, whatever needs to be done to them so that grass isn't growing over?
Okay.
And who will be doing that in the future?
The HOA has been doing maintenance. What I believe some of the residents will say are there are a lot of areas that need further maintenance. I believe we would say, call the property manager, so on and so forth. If it's not being done, it should be. But there is some big maintenance, not a lot of dollars spent, but some maintenance being done now. But changing that, I don't think is a big deal. What I would say in response to the motion, I said earlier, the primary system is not up and we, for conveyance. I'm sorry, the secondary system is not up for conveyance. And we've had all the discussion about the two systems, which for the residents' benefit was because staff was recommending denial. If notwithstanding all the stuff in your permit criteria, 8-inch, all this other stuff, videos, and turning it over, according to the permit criteria, if because of the residents' stated concern, which I understand may be very compelling to this board, you do want to take that tonight, with all of those things understood, we're not objecting to that. So, if all this discussion was because of the recommendation of denial, and we felt it important that the primary system does need to go now, so that the HOA does not get saddled with that expense, so that it can serve the other areas that rely on it, so the permit forms can be signed, so on and so forth. So just for the context there.
Bill, I
Yes.
go along with that, but for discussion, there's two things to me that from an engineering perspective have to be resolved. One, we have to take an action and waive our permit criteria manual, in my opinion, because we're accepting it, it's contrary to the manual. And the second one, and more important one, is, at this point in time, can either Tony or Charles tell me that if we have a problem at one of those 27 back lot lines on Bellcrest tomorrow, after we accept it, we go out there and start digging it up, we're not gonna get sued, because there's no easement.
Well, as to quote Mr. Pierce before, you can never, there's always liability, you can always get sued. Can I
Is there
commit
an
to?
easement, Charles? It's that simple. Do we have a legal easement to go in there and maintain it?
My belief, the HOA has an easement in these documents,
They
they
said
can
it's the
assign.
CDD,
No,
or I mean,
but-
the Gateway CDD. Do
Right.
we have the right, if we take,
Well,
like
right-
Bill said, everything, inclusive the 8-inch, do we have the right to go in and maintain it? That's the question.
And I think that could be argued either way. Right now, there are easements to you. Yeah, so that, well, there's, as you have said many times before, Mr. Tickle, nothing is 100% perfect in this world. There's always a little hair on something. So there's easements in here. Will we cooperate for the HOA to assign the easement they would have in here to the CDD to bolster the CD's position? Sure.
And that could be, if the board's so inclined to approve this action, that I think would be a necessary condition of that.
And that's okay.
Wouldn't it boil down to, if we did run into issues, we didn't have access to the easement, that the homeowner would push back or whatever, it's gonna get fixed.
Well, that's nice if it's the
Do we have any
last
Bellcrest?
property owner, but if it's the middle property owner and everybody at the high side, they're gonna get burned.
No, and the other difficulty is, no, the other
This-
difficulty.
Water does-
This tests our risk
You got
tolerance.
two guys on the board.
But if I may, also, the
Convey
other
it.
risk on that is, my experience with agencies, if you are taking over the operation of any facility or have the responsibility for operating a facility, and you're not operating it, and a neighbor or resident calls, you say, you know what, we don't have legal access, Susie told me not to go on John's property, or vice versa, they'll say, tough. you're the owner of that system. Your issue about not having, I mean, that's, we've run into that before.
Bill, where you're going with this, that's the way I was going. And the reason I'm really backing this up is because after that letter we got from South Florida Water Management District, I think we're gonna get this whole deal of secondary drainage systems stuck up our x-axis. And we're gonna be signing off on them whether we like it or not. So why are we gonna burn Hampton Park? It's coming.
Madam Chairman, vote on the motion.
Get, well, we want the condition, like Tony said, of the easement, the acquisition.
The assignment by the Master Association, they've indicated they're agreed.
Yes, and yes.
Thank you, sir. Sir.
I agree.
I thought you were recognizing that.
The last thing we haven't heard, Margaret, I wanna hear from our district manager, their position on this.
Position is,
They're gonna run it.
I've been involved with this for 9 months, and my position's been the middleman. I take the recommendation from our legal counsel and from our district engineer, compile the information, and bring the agenda item to the board for the consideration. And my only opinion on the backside is, you're right, you're probably gonna end up eating it, and it's gonna be fodder for that assessment methodology on how you assess for stormwater utility and maintenance, because someone's gonna pay for it.
It's gonna come out of somebody's budget.
Correct. So,
With that, I will agree to the,
The motion?
the revised motion of
Amended
the,
motion.
yes.
And I'd also, I'm asking the motion.
And the waiver.
To waiver,
Yes.
that you're agreeing, that part of the motion will be to waiver our permit criteria now.
For this,
Make an exception.
for this one
This
single.
one, yes.
As to the pipe size.
they can
And the
decide
pipe size
to the
only.
pipe size.
Well, wait, that's, you got video, you got a whole bunch of other things.
Sit down.
So,
Charles, I understand that.
Just wanna make sure we're clear.
Here's our problem on that. Here's our problem on that. You set this date here, today's date. I would have liked to, and I brought up at the last meeting, what if I would have been doing it, it would have been my checkbook to write. We'd have been out there running cameras up every one of those sewers. And it would have been a win-win or a lose-lose. But we didn't do that. So there's a risk involved. We go out, after we do this and make this motion, and assuming it passes, we can still go out there, and we can still video. And alls I can say is, heaven help someone, we find defects to the tune of where we get burnt. Not pointing fingers anyway, but heaven help somebody.
At least our residents will know we have their best interest.
We have their best interest, and that's what the King's English said.
I
It's
will-
not what I wanted.
I'll call the vote with one, I just want to get a nod of your heads that Mr. Worley and Mr. Brand, you will be willing to work with the CDD to see to it that we have access to that 8-inch pipe.
That's what I wanted to tell you.
Okay.
We've already laid the groundwork for that.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
And with that, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Here we go.
This was supposed to be one page that I was gonna send you. It turned out two. I just went on the internet. I had to go home and do something.
Why couldn't we address this?
Jim? Hey, Jim, hold on. No, kid.
But the bottom line is that document, should be like a preamble, which will
That
be,
the bill of sale has a 1-year warranty, okay, and I think BMP is going to be vigilant, and the staff be vigilant with any defects. Because there might be other issues with regards to the fact that some of these pipes have been in the ground 10 years or more. If 1 year is critical.
Tony, point, it's 3
No,
years.
no.
they've been in service for 10 years.
No, but he's saying 10 for some of them. What I'm saying is, from the standpoint of making claims against Lennar, it's critical that we pay attention to it and you diligently in the next year. And
Ron's not agreeing with that. We just, as is tonight, you want to take it for the residents, we were fine with that. That's what I was trying to clarify, and I was told to sit down, but our view, you want it all, take it, that's fine. But I don't-
If the bill of sale has a
This should be the terms may, should,
You make a motion to change this to 3 years. Permit criteria?
The people that aren't gonna stay for the meeting.
Maybe they'll give you some food for thought on how to deal with it.
Madam Chairman, are you leaving? Where are you going? Rhonda, Charles, I think I'll
Jim, you did
stick
something
around,
nice.
Madam Chairman. The bill is-
I'm all for not complicating if I think it's gonna be
No,
complicated.
the bill of sale that's been submitted has to be accepted in advance, as warned for language. I'm being told now that WCI is going to be on.
And I spoke with Rhonda and we can have the bond.
No, what do you want in the bill of sale? What you're proposing now is to change the bill of sale?
No, we'll give you another, you don't have our secondary in that bill of sale. I give you another bill of sale for the secondary under the conditions that I think everyone was pushing to.
The bill of sale did have the secondary.
You already got the secondary
Okay,
on there.
so for those 3 things, for that stuff.
It's already in the bill of sale.
Yeah, for those things, I think that'd probably be fine, because we did submit that. Is that, well, I defer to you, I'm not the decision
Well, that was your
maker,
October
actually.
intent.
Yeah, your
Wait,
October.
what?
That was your intent in October.
No, it was a mistake that Carl put those last 3 on there. The secondary system was never intended.
It's never been withdrawn, and that's what the board considered tonight.
We taken it all. We taken it all.
How about you give us 60 seconds?
Okay, I think that's fair.
If you do, get with Carl's letter, check,
No,
Charles, check, it's not gonna be simple. Check area D and E's review comments.
I don't believe there's anything left on the agenda for us. Do you want
I
us to
don't,
stay?
you are dismissed. Thank you for your service.
Thank you all.
I didn't mean to throw anything into the work.
Are we all supposed to just throw stuff at Danny?
Yes.
As long as it's candy.
Anything you want.
I already ate all.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Moving-
Madam Chairperson, just a point of clarification, what did you ask Ron and I to commit to?
That you'd agree to work with the district to make sure we had access to that pipe behind the houses.
We already have the form, it'll require being recorded, signed by the residents.
Thank you.
We will get that done.
Thank you.
All 27 of them.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. And the association.
Yes, yes.
And if you'd like to move rapidly on B, C, and D, they're
Yeah.
basically all budgeted: Pelican Preserve, pond maintenance, pond planning, and preserve area maintenance.
Mr. Guy, I will give you the benefit of making the motions for Hampton Park. I mean, for Pelican Reserve, sorry.
I'm just here
Hampton Park.
to answer questions.
They're all budgeted and approved by PPAC.
I move the approval of the Pelican Reserve expenditures on the agenda.
5B, C, and D,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
will second.
all in favor?
Aye.
You got them.
And I just have one more comment for the meeting too. I was kind of remiss because I said that meeting of the selection committee wasn't posted, and it was posted on the district's website on April 30th with the location, time and place.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a section under there, engineer selection committee, and it was posted there.
Good, thank you.
Anything from PPAC or any questions for PPAC?
No.
No, no, no.
So, thank you. Anything you wanted to bring up, Phil? Under PPAC
I'm
report?
curious as to what this taking over the secondary drainage has the impact, because obviously in our communities, it's all the HOAs that have taken over, have
Well, there's a big-
volunteered.
One big difference is that you've got two big differences. You got the pipe size, and then you have the second one is where you have the easements between properties that are not dedicated.
Well, their language provides between the properties to allow that to be placed.
I'm sorry,
In reviewing the Pelican Reserve covenants at the time.
but it's to the HOA.
No, there was sufficient for the district, but they agreed to maintain it.
Okay, well, that's, same thing, same thing.
So your HOA
No.
agreed.
And I think it's
Our
part of the
HOAs
intent
agreed.
too, right?
Well,
So
Our HOAs
Pelican
didn't
has-
realize that there was an alternative.
Well, no, but I think the difference is probably the use of the intent, right? So Pelican wanted the intent so they could manage the downspouts and everything else. Hampton doesn't have that same environment, nor do they have any desire. So I think that's kind of where the
Ain't got
line in
no-
the sand is.
Oh, are we still just chatting, or?
No, we're waiting on you.
Oh,
No, well, let's
Bill's
do
sale,
that.
last stands, that's fine, we're good.
Thanks, Charles.
Okay?
Thanks,
Thank
Charles.
you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
And,
Thank you.
Mr.
You said-
McCulca was
Oh, yeah.
here a
Okay,
little
too much fun.
earlier, but, so, the Stony Brook minutes from January, February, and March were in the book because Mrs. Flaherty had requested they be put in. So if you have any questions, Mr. McCulca said he would be willing to come back to the next meeting and answer them. So brings us to supervisor comments. I'll start with you, Ed.
Well, I think a lesson learned as a result of this. We gotta be one hell of a lot more careful of reviewing these documents when they come in and asking questions. As we saw here, and this one was unique, and I didn't want to get into an argument with Charles, but I've read them, believe me, I have read them. This one is unique. None else in Gateway have the wording that are like theirs. The rest of them have that secondary drainage. What I'm getting around to is I think we need to probably revisit what we said we were going to do, and probably was in my part and haven't done it yet. We gotta take a second look at that permit criteria.
Yeah, yeah.
I will say.
The word waterproof being left out, we can do that also.
I
But,
will say I've got.
we
I
learned a
just-
lesson.
I just happen to have Stony Brook's documents with me because they were in the same bag I carried to this meeting. Our documents do not definitively talk about primary and secondary. It's
Who's
just
your,
the whole
who's your
system.
attorney?
The,
You guys were Lennar, weren't you?
we were Lennar and Pavis created our documents,
Yes,
so
he-
it does
The
not.
Beast didn't create ours, ours was the old Westinghouse.
Ours do not have a separation of primary and secondary.
Well, other than that, I wanna thank Bill for making that motion, Bill.
And Mr. Banks, do you have any comment?
I'm just curious, so Mike, with the summer coming up, I know normally that's when we kind of shut down some fields and stuff. Can you put together what our maintenance, schedule's gonna be for the, especially for the soccer field over here? I know we've had questions in the past where residents wanna come out and use the fields during the summer, and that's typically when we chain everything up. And we say we're doing maintenance, but there's really nothing gets done until the last 2 or 3 weeks of the year. And if it's a matter of getting field rest, even within that time period, maybe we can rotate some fields. I think I saw something from you, Chris, that you were gonna, I think somebody's looking to use the fields, but I'd just like an idea of what the maintenance schedule's gonna look like, and if we could just have some consideration so residents could get out and use the fields.
The fields, each of them, with the exception of 3, are need of repair. They have to have sod put on them, and the sod has to grow in, and that takes 6 weeks. With no.
And I got no problem if
no
we're,
plan.
because I know we've had issues with the fields, and I think they're in probably the worst condition that I've seen in a long time. If we have to do a massive shutdown because we're doing significant maintenance, I got no problem with that. The issue I've had in years past is we shut everything down for maintenance, and the last 2 weeks of the summer, we come out and we do a deep seed, or we do.
Keep time.
Or, yeah, we do something, and we could have left, could at least open 1 or 2
We
fields. for
were
the summer.
looking at the field 3, it's just how do we, keep people off the other fields
Yeah.
that are having the sod grow in.
Yeah,
Is
no, I
the
understand, I
last
was just,
thing
and
that
I
was-
don't need a solution now, I was just saying if you could just maybe present it at some point, it doesn't have to be the next board meeting either, just, I'd like to know what the schedule is.
Well, we're coming up because we're in May now, and we're gonna be, the fields will be shutting down soon.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
gonna be having them sodded very shortly here.
Okay, all right, thanks, that's all I got.
For the next meeting, I will let you know what our schedule is.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Guy?
I'm out of breath.
Mrs. Flaherty.
I can do CPR, Bill.
I will call this meeting adjourned
Thank you.
At, 6:03.
6:03 for the record.